skill acquisition and strength development are two separate things that have to be treated, not necessarily separately, but we have to consider the fact that they're different and the ways that we get better at them are also different.
Good morning, Misfits. You are tuning into another episode of the Misfit Podcast. Full Goon Squad not in the house. Congratulations to Matt and Noel on Baby Sherb number 2.
Is Matt?
I said Baby Sherb at the end. Lincoln, Koa, Sherburne, another goon has been brought into the world.
Jesus.
The Misfit junior weightlifting team has grown. I'm very excited about that.
2 out of 3 members present.
2 out of 3 members present. So yeah, congrats, guys. Nice job. Nice work.
Sure, he's definitely listening.
Oh, he listens to this. What's up, buddy? How you doing, man? You good?
Sure.
You okay? Not, into the old 21-15-9.
Rubbing my nuts all over your chair.
It's going to be so much hand skin in your chair. Before we get started on the podcast, a couple of housekeeping items. Misfit Summer Camp.
Yo.
June 23rd through the 25th. You can sign up at misfit.camp. The only thing that we know
2.5 months away.
Yeah, the only thing that we know more about than training is coaching. There's a good chance if you're listening to this podcast, you're at least interested in coaching, if not already a coach, an affiliate owner, and our ability to explain to athletes what we're trying to get them to accomplish is backed up by a bunch of nerd talk that we wish someone would talk to us about, that no one wants to talk to us about. So if you show up as a coach and you really want to know how we, sort of landed in some of these positions, whether it comes to our lecture series or movement efficiency or mindset or any of that stuff, a lot of people think of us just as the, sort of competitor coaches, and we started out at the affiliate level, have 2 affiliates now, 2 of the best affiliates in the entire country. So the coaching side, the affiliate side, all of that is extremely important to us, and we'll dig in a bit more in today's episode. Also, if you are a gym owner or a Team Misfit subscriber, I guess that would be an and/or, we do wholesale for Proper Fuel. So your pre-workout, stim-free, and many stimulant, Proper Recover, post-workout nutrition, hydrate, electrolyte supplements. We've got a good wholesale model, some good pricing, and even better pricing for Team Misfit affiliates. So if you're interested in proper wholesale selling the best supplements in the game at your gym, you can email matt@properfuel.co. We'll get that pricing sheet over to you, and obviously let us know if you have any questions. All right. Team Misfit baseline. Why don't you hit me with just a little bit of an overview? We've met quite a bit in the last few months about the affiliate programming arm of Misfit Athletics and the direction that we want to go in. And potentially the most excited I got during that meeting was going through the specifics of what we're trying to accomplish in this baseline phase. So just a little nugget of sort of like where it came from.
Yeah,
the
so
idea
like broad overview, whether you're a subscriber or not, or even just an affiliate owner listening to the podcast or coach thinking about programming. We use the open as kind of the beginning and end of the season, just like a lot of other gyms do. We use that to a certain extent for the individual program for Misfit Athletics. Although obviously the affiliate level athlete is more geared towards the open and maybe quarterfinals. So we use that as the kind of calendar cutoff for beginning and end of a training season. And once we finish up, where we're at right now, where quarterfinals are done and essentially all of our affiliate level athletes are kind of doing normal training. Even most of them aren't even all that concerned about the competitive season, but we kind of get a chance to reset. And the baseline phases are kind of those first out of season, quote unquote, out of season. Again, understanding many affiliate athletes aren't all that concerned about the competitive season, but post open, we get the chance to kind of reassess. And we do that like you were alluding to, we did that kind of reassessment a few months ago because of how far in advance we have to write the programming. But this year we kind of took the same idea of the baseline training phases, think about it as kind of a back to basics, as just kind of getting back into getting back into maybe a little bit more broad and varied programming rather than being more focused towards like the 3 workouts that we're going to get in the CrossFit Open. So, and along with that, we get the opportunity, especially up here in the Northeast where it's like starts to get nice out. We get to get people, the bay doors get open. We're starting to do more stuff outside. And obviously there are plenty of affiliates who have the benefit, bless your souls, of being able to train outside year round, but we don't have that. So we always look forward to that post open time frame when things start to get warmer. We can get people outside doing a lot of running, which is something we've got queued up. And then, really just kind of thinking about what we can do to move the needle for athletes with respect to the things that they enjoy doing, that athletes like enjoy doing and like being able to see progress in, while also making sure it stays a CrossFit GPP program for the masses.
So I alluded to it a little bit before, but again, so much of our content is centered around competitive CrossFit, and the thing that we've done the most and the thing that we've interacted with the most is affiliate programming and coaching. Yep. Napkin math, while you were talking there, tells me we've written 111 phases of affiliate programming since 2009.
Multiply that by how many programs?
Yeah. So this idea of what I call the meathead mentality of understanding sets and reps and iteration and sort of making your way through things and A/B testing. Does this work? Does that not work? It translates very well from, we all sort of start out in that athlete mindset to the coach's mindset of we write programs, we audit them, we move forward. And there's a lot of nuance and intricacies to the affiliate because so much of it is about the experience of an individual athlete. And we'll get eventually in this podcast to a point where we talk about what do you do if you are an affiliate athlete, if you know that you want to be a competitor, but you still want to be part of your community, sort of how do you navigate that and how do we help athletes navigate that? But this is what we do and something that we're really passionate about.
I think, and in total, like proportionally, you're probably an exception just because of your work. But like me, Sherb, and all of our other coaches, we spend a far higher proportion of our time coaching affiliate athletes versus the CrossFit Games athletes. And that's like, I really enjoy that because of how, at a certain level, like it's a pretty tight kind of bracket of elite level athletes. Like you might be the 30th, you might be the 45th fittest human being on the planet just outside the CrossFit Games. You might be the 10th fittest, but the gap there isn't quite as massive as, you have someone who comes in who hasn't done exercise in the past 20 years. We had a beginner come in yesterday that Kyle's working with who, his workout consisted of a one round of his workout included a single burpee every time. And it's like, that's about as far in one direction as you get, all the way to, affiliate level athletes who are in the top 150 in, North America doing just like the affiliate class at the gym. And both of those people interact with each other at our affiliate. And that gives us coaches like a really cool, spread of different athletes. And then we also get to do, when we talk about the affiliate programming, get to treat kind of the affiliate as a bit of a lab. And a lot of the things that we do in the affiliate end up making its way into the competitor programming as like, hey, we tried this and it turned out it was really effective.
You get eyes on a lot of athletes.
Yeah, you get to see a lot. You get to see how a lot of different athletes execute. And there's always one or two workouts where like, one or two of those members are just happen to be in, it just happens to be a wheelhouse workout for them. And it's like, wow, we saw like the best way that workout could get executed. How can the Misfit Athletics side of the company execute that sort of workout? And then, we get to go back and forth with experimenting kind of across all Misfit communities.
Yeah. And the thing about coaching that's fun is it's sort of tongue in cheek, but I'll tell some coaches who are struggling, whether remote coaching or at the affiliate level, to be selfish as a coach. And what I mean by that is at the affiliate level, a little goes a long ways. You can make these massive changes with athletes. And when you see it happening and you see their reaction, you get that rush of, all those chemicals being released, and it's extremely rewarding to go in and add 20 pounds to a member's back squat, or take them from 1 burpees to, you see them a few years down the road and they're doing 40 in a workout or something like that. So if you get bogged down, as a coach, thinking about it from that perspective can be really helpful, because you can go in and say, I do know what it is that's going to take this athlete from point A to honestly point F or something. And it can be really fun to do that. And there's a lot of things in this baseline phase that have that feel to them, where an athlete can see measurable change throughout, but it's still just feels like they're showing up day after day to class with variance.
For sure. Yeah. And I think that if you're somebody who's interested in coaching, at any level, the affiliate does give you the opportunity for that, in the same way that an athlete goes to a CrossFit gym for broad and inclusive fitness, like you get the same experience as a coach, being able to interact with a lot of different types of people, combination of, different athletic abilities, different temperaments, different motivations, among a lot of different types of athletes. And that has to be the best way to prepare yourself to coach a more niche population, like a competitive CrossFitter. Like I would not have nearly the breadth of knowledge to pass on to higher level CrossFit athletes if I didn't spend as much time interacting with your, the other 99%, your typical
you just get this
athlete.
massive array of problem solving opportunities. And I'm huge on a coach eventually owning their intuition and not having a by the book answer. And the way that you get that is your 10,000 hours of watching movement over and over and over and being like, I've seen this a million times, and in translating that to a higher level is usually a little bit easier, just because of how quickly a lot of those athletes can make those changes.
For sure.
All right. So we're going to start with what we internally and how we communicate to Team Misfit Gym coaches as the high CNS lifts. I think it's important for coaches to know that you don't necessarily want to use terminology like that with a member. They'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about? And you go, oh, it's central nervous system. And they're like, again, what the fuck are you talking about? So we are trying to essentially move the needle on some heavier barbells, essentially. If it's someone where that they want their 1 rep max to go up, say that. If it's someone who doesn't care about that, it's like, you're going to get like stronger, like actually stronger, and you're going to be able to feel that. We are getting into what we could refer to as the mirepoix, or the holy trinity of strength movements. And there's something special about these strength movements once the bay doors open here up in Maine and people are hanging out and lifting heavy weights. So what are we getting into with the high CNS lifts?
Squat, deadlift, press.
Love it.
What is it, mirepoix? That translate to? I don't even know what that means. The holy, the Jeebus. What is it, Ted?
I don't know what the actual translation is. Yeah.
It's the get strong exercises.
Yeah, it's your mise en place of strength training.
So squat, deadlift, and press, bench pressing and strict pressing. So this is I don't remember if you mentioned this. This is going to be a 16-week training phase. Typically, we go 7 to 8 weeks, depending on kind of how the calendar lays itself out. This baseline training phase is, we've got it written as baseline 2, or there's 2 phases, 8 weeks butted up back to back. But for all intents and purposes, this is a 16-week long phase, where every week or every other week, 1 week will involve back squatting and strict pressing. The next week will involve deadlifting and bench pressing. So basically you get 2 high CNS lifts in one single training session. That's based a little bit on feedback from affiliates, and honestly, just a little bit of experimentation on our side. We've previously stuck to just like the 1 high CNS lift, which I think is certainly more than effective, but it's also kind of interesting to experiment with, like, well, can we get a little bit more out of the hour without, negatively impacting one thing or the other. So 2 lifts in one session, and it's going to alternate between higher rep stuff and your classic 5s, 3s, and 1s, and that's how we get athletes strong. And the reason for the alternating has a lot to do with, one, like a combination of variance. It's very easy on the competitor side to say every Monday you're going to do a 5x5 back squat and add 5 pounds every time, and I don't care if you like it or not, because you want to be a competitive CrossFitter, and 5x5 is the best way to get strong. But when we're thinking about the affiliate level athlete, like you said, there is a very big consideration for experience and enjoyment of doing the class. And if it's always the same exact style of lifting session, then that can get tedious over a certain period of time. And we want athletes in the gym every week for 3 years, every week for 5 years, not 6 weeks on, 2 months off, that sort of thing.
And there's an insinuation too. You can move the needle with 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 5 reps. I feel like most people know that, but the efficacy, there's kind of a sweet spot of where that's best for an athlete. And we are talking about a population of beginners to, quarterfinals competitors.
Exactly.
So when we're doing a program like that, we need to come in with that conditioning level of, we're going to like actually manipulate muscle fibers 1 week, and then the next week we are going to manipulate that nervous system, get your body used to really firing in a way where you can be powerful. When you put those things back and forth, not only do they lend to each other, but then they lend to the rest of the program as well.
Yeah, the experienced athlete is always has the enough baseline of fitness to say, like, yes, I have a reliable 1 rep max or 5 rep max, and therefore any percentage work that I do based off of that is probably going to be effective, plus or minus, a handful of percentage points, and assuming that you are putting in the effort. And then again, for somebody who's a little bit newer, 5 sets of 5 is terrific, but someone who can squat 5 sets of 5 at the same weight they can do the heaviest set of 5 that they can, someone who's not quite experienced enough or just not strong enough, then we can, when we go back to something like a higher rep day, that athlete can get an adaptation as well. So we can really make sure that athletes of all ability levels are getting the adaptation with sound coaching and scaling where applicable.
2 things come to mind when I think about coaching a class like this. The first one is, again, being proud of what goes on next door at our affiliate. The image I'm getting in my mind is in iRobot, when Will Smith sees all of them and they have them do it's basically like marching or coming to attention, or all move in the exact same way. You walk over there on a deadlift day, and during the warm up, you'll get the to the knee, to the hip, back down to the knee, back down to the floor. And it looks like iRobot. Everyone is moving incredibly. Or I walk in at, 20 minutes past the hour, and I see the same thing with actual weight on the bar. And people are moving really well. So take the opportunity as a coach to create these movement patterns in your athletes, because you'll find the leaders in the room or the people that move really well who are going to sort of set the tone, and you can make corrections with everybody, and then everyone in the gym will start to move like each other, and that can be really, really helpful. So taking the time during your warm-ups to sort of go over the basics. And then the other side of the other thing that comes to mind is just, we've got more time within this class to really dig into how to teach somebody how to deadlift, how to back squat, how to press, how to bench press. And as a coach, we need a perspective shift. If you look down at the sheet and you see, okay, this is a lifting day, and there is some really cool nuance that you can get into on what the lifting days look like. But when you look at that, you should be salivating. I get time to nerd out with people on how you're supposed to do this and how we can make you better. And again, that's that whole jumping from A to F or A to Z, all in one, because a lot of times athletes, might already have the requisite strength and they just don't know what they're doing. So taking the time to look at it and go, wow, I can really teach something today, especially when that's just a once a week occurrence, should get coaches excited.
Yeah, I think, and just from frame it however you like, whether it's selfishly for the coach, but if you're able to teach athletes, really move the needle on the basics of, deadlifting, squatting, and pressing, basically the foundation for all of the other weightlifting movements that we do. If you can take the time to, develop the correct movement patterns and whatnot in your athletes, it's going to make the subsequent days or phases when we do get into more complex lifts like cleaning and snatching, which there's still plenty of this phase, but once we get back into those, if you've developed those foundations, the expectations of a certain quality of movement amongst your athletes, teaching the other movements is so much easier, along with just the fact that athletes are going to get stronger, athletes are going to stay healthier, they're not going to get injured, all those sorts of things. Or communicating it on the other side to the athlete is we have a golden opportunity for 16 straight weeks where we can really refine and clean up, whether it's retooling a movement pattern, whether it's just really focusing on a certain aspect of the movement, but the athlete has the opportunity to seriously move the needle in not only these lifts, but set themselves up for success for the rest of the year. Because, athletes, as much fun it is as it is to squat heavy and deadlift heavy, athletes also want to get better at the complex lifts, the high skilled gymnastic stuff, and everything that we're doing in this phase, I think really sets athletes up, gives them that foundation to really make improvements, especially coming off of the open and quarterfinals, where some athletes are, salivating at the bit to improve on things that they thought were going to go well, but maybe didn't, or just they found some new weaknesses that they didn't know they had. Whatever it is, they have the opportunity to move the needle a lot with this style of phase.
We all have the members that when something new like this starts are going to want to be essentially sold on something.
Yeah.
And man, if there's anything, we were talking about this yesterday in a meeting. If there's anything that we know how to do, it's how to make a group of people stronger.
Yeah.
The fun thing within our coaches group, and then, both at our other affiliate, is the circling of the PR numbers on the whiteboard once we're going through this stuff. And it's really, basically you've got gym versus gym bragging about percentage of PRs, and then it's class to class. A lot of coaches slot in at, I'm mostly the 6 a.m. person or the 9 a.m. or whatever, and these are my people, and I taught them better than you did, essentially. And obviously it's a little bit tongue in cheek because everyone wants everybody to get stronger, but there's something powerful to the buy-in, making its way down the levels of we are essentially selling this to our affiliate coaches, and then they are selling it to, sort of the community leaders. And that's when you get the people who come in that are excited to lift, that do move well, that bring the right energy to the room. And then I talk about hive strength of there's something really cool about what happens when everyone's moving the barbell well in a class. Yeah. People really pick up on that energy from each other. So I would just say know who those people are in your gym, and sort of explain what we're doing here and make sure that people are starting to move well. And all of that can come together, and your coaching and community and members can be just as much of a reason to why everyone gets stronger as the actual program itself.
Yeah, you can think of it as, and this is not, I don't have the actual experience of this, but it's at a certain point, if you have kids, it's at a certain point, you're no longer the one socializing your kids. You do that up to a certain point, but at some point when they start hanging out with friends and whatnot, friends and their school and whatnot is responsible for socializing your kids. And it's the same in the CrossFit gym. You as the coach have a certain level of kind of power and authority and inspiration over athletes, but it's not as much as you think. They're going to feed off of each other a lot more than the others. And like you're saying, you have your OG fire breathers who maybe have been at your gym for 5, even 10 years or whatever, and they kind of set the standard, and you gradually kind of build that culture where it's hey, you're a bit of a, I don't want to say outcast, but like you're the odd man out if you're not really focusing on moving well, for example, or if you're, if you're bringing the average down of the class, it's like, no, like, come on, like we're all in this together sort of thing. And your community leaders, and just the members in general have a lot more say in that than you do. So like you're saying, leveraging that is a huge way that you can, move the needle for your athletes without, you can't take you can take some responsibility for that, but not all of it.
What is the single greatest expression of fitness when it comes to just human beings? We're out and about. There's no such thing as CrossFit. There's no such thing as the gym.
And it's got to be moving your body through space, right? Like,
it's got to be running,
walking at the very least, but being able to move from large loads, long distances quickly, cover ground, whatever it is. Like,
we are asking you. Well, we're not asking you.
We're telling you.
Yeah, we're telling you.
Join us.
How to get your members to a place where they can check off the holy grail of boxes of, at any point, if you said 3, 2, 1, go, I could go jog comfortably for 30 minutes.
Yep. I think, man, I wish I had watched this video before, but I've heard K-Star say it, but like one of the most functional things that like every human should be able to do is run continuously for 30 minutes. I think, did he say that? Did it come from somewhere else? Do you remember?
So I've heard it from a multitude of sources, but he was the one who was a bit more relentless with it. Yeah. Like, I'm going to keep bringing this up. I'm going to keep bringing this up. You're going to keep overcorrecting and specializing in all these different directions. And if it does not create an athlete that can go do this, then something is off. And that could be for powerlifters, for whatever. Like, if you can't express your humanity in that way, then something is wrong with, your physiology, metabolically, like all these different things. And again, this is at a very like baseline human level. Yeah. And rather than put that out into the universe and not back it up with, hey, coaches, this is how to execute on that and how to teach your athletes to do it, here it is.
Yeah. We kind of went back and forth on this for a little while because there's CrossFitters, for whatever reason, seem to have very strong opinions about running. They'd rather just exercise in a 3 foot by 3 foot square. It's like, I exercise and I'll do it really hard, but don't you dare ask me to go forward or backward in any direction. I'll sit on my rower. I'll stand with this barbell here and do
there was a monitor,
thrusters.
I swear to God, if you had the Tony Stark helmet, and there was a monitor, people would be fine with running. You guys run way too hard and then way too slow. Don't do that.
So
that's all I have to say. No, I'm kidding. But like that is a huge thing with what you're asking them to do.
I think it is
within this running.
Yeah, and we're trying to give everybody the test for the phase is 40 minutes max distance. And again, we went back and forth on like, what should the test be? Is it a 10K? It's like, we've done the 5K run, that's a classic benchmark. 10K can start to bleed into like maybe this isn't super accessible, or it also just takes a long time, like to try to keep in a clasp. So we kind of settled on what's accessible, what provides a challenge for everybody. And after talking to a few of our athletes across the street who have like a running background, I'm like, hey, can you run a sub 40-minute 10K? And one of them's like, I will. Like, I'm going to call it right now. I'll run a sub 40 10K by the end of this phase. I asked one of our he's a little bit older, just kind of got into it, very much a runner. We're still working on the lifting side, but he was like, yeah, I can do it. Probably not now, but with some training. And then same thing with another.
That's the beauty of the test retest model is like set a baseline that essentially is just what we described. Move your body through space, walking, jogging, running, whatever you need to do for 40 minutes. Yep. Then we work on it, and we work on different energy systems, and we need the fast twitch musculature, we need the slow twitch. We're going to work on that. We're going to work, I went through the program, and it's really good. Like, we're going to run hard this week, and then we're going to have some slower stuff. So you will be able to do that. The only thing is there will be a handful of people in your class that can fuck themselves up, for lack of a safer term, nicer term. And they are the ones who have the running background, who potentially have that deconditioned musculature.
Yeah.
You know, they're either new, or they don't show up that often, or they've been on a hiatus and they smell blood in the water and they want to come in and run. So I wouldn't worry that much about anyone other than that athlete, because the athletes who can run hard are potentially going to run hard for 20, 25 minutes.
Yeah.
And then get served a little bit of a dose of reality.
Yeah. This like starting last week, now that when you're listening to this podcast, but starting really the last 2 weeks, and then like each week we've programmed in basically that kind of first run post winter. Like we're in a place where athletes won't run for 4 or 5 months at a time. And then it's like, if that first run back is 400-meter repeats, like, well, we'll see everybody in like 5 days, because their hips and like calves are going to be super sore. So we've kind of tried to taper athletes into running, giving folks a heads up that, you know, is going to be a lot of running this summer. But and the end goal is to get as many think to yourself how many athletes you have at your gym who are not capable of running for maybe even a mile at a time, maybe even 1 mile without having to stop. Maybe they can run for 10 or 15 minutes, but then have to stop. And the goal was, how do we get as many athletes running for 30 minutes as possible? And understanding that we're not going to get everybody there, but we can provide a test that is, for the fittest, 40 minutes. Like, we're talking about that 10K benchmark for your fittest. That's really fast. I think it's a 6:27 mile, but you have athletes who are going to be able to do that if they have that running background. You've got a lot of athletes who are going to be able to cover well over 4 miles, even 5 in that duration. So there are a lot of benchmarks that you can hit. And then what the notes say is, like, if you have athletes who it's just like, I have no chance of running for 40 minutes. It's 40 minutes of move your body through space. And I think that's underestimated as a form of, one, exercise, especially for deconditioned athletes, and two, just just because you can't jog for 40 straight minutes doesn't mean that you can't jog for 13 minutes and then walk for 10 and then jog for more and then have some sort of metric to test and retest against. But to the original question, you know, there really isn't, I don't think, a more functional thing that we can do. We talk about bending over to pick something up with a deadlift, squatting down to pick something up with a squat, but like ultimately those are stationary things, and probably the one thing that all humans have in common is that they need to get from point A to point B at some point in their life or day.
So the vision is starting to take shape here. We are, you know, tackling the holy grail of these strength movements. Yep. Now we're coming over and doing something similar within the cardio space. And what's great is all of these things surrounding it are still what you would expect to be there. And that is the magic of what CrossFit programming does. Yep. We come in, we get you stronger. We are going to just slightly bias the running over other things. And then lo and behold, what do I see when I look at the program? I see burpees and rowing and handstands, all of these different things being mixed into it. And that's when you can really move the needle. And there's something very special about finding some way to work in. We'll talk about how we do it with, sort of our affiliate competitors in a bit, but to work in some of that longer, slower stuff, because that is one thing that's potentially missing from a lot of affiliate classes. And part of that is just time. Yep. Like, do we have the time to actually tackle this? Yeah. Do we have the time? Do we have enough rowers for everybody to be sitting on a rower? Do we have to just stick people on different machines? And that can certainly be a tough sell. And that was, that's like we talked about with the experience thing. That can be a difficult thing where it's like you see on the whiteboard, like 3 rounds, run 1 mile. It's like, holy fuck. Like, 1, that's terrifying for some people. 2, that's boring for other people. But if we try to put it in context for like what we're trying to do on the whole, we've got basically the 2 ends of the spectrum that we've talked about. We're trying to get people as maximally strong as possible. At the same time, we're trying to get people moving their bodies through space for a very long, consistent amount of time. So if we can kind of put our two flags in the ground, one on each
very extreme end of the 60-minute affiliate class spectrum. The rest of the time, we just fill in the gaps with classic CrossFit, which is kind of the goal.
I'm starting to see something taking shape here in regards to some people go to CrossFit gyms and derive a lot of like why they're there from an aesthetic standpoint. We lift heavy, testosterone goes up, basal metabolic rate goes up, you burn more calories just hanging out. You run, and there's really nothing that's going to sort of melt everything away more than running, especially at longer distances. And now what I see next here with the gymnastics skill focus is like we could be talking about full on beach season program by accident.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's not say accident. I mean, everybody needs a quick pump before they go to the beach, but Hunter
doesn't get to wear his wetsuit here in a few months, so it's going to be the right one.
Slim down here for the thin boy. We did this last year, again, kind of thinking about the baseline idea of getting back to the basics. The strict pull-ups and push-ups are something that we try to emphasize a ton at the gym because, again, I'm super excited for your deadlift PR. I'm super excited for your clean and jerk PR, but an athlete who can't move their own body weight via whether it's running or simple movements like push-ups or pull-ups, like those are things that we want to move the needle on with athletes, maybe even more so than finding that 1 rep max. So the gymnastics work has the same test and retest that we had if you were with us last year, which is just, I think it's 4 minutes of max reps of each of those 2 movements. But each week we're going to alternate. So basically, like one of those weeks we talked about, you're going to be back squatting and strict pressing. So overhead pressing, that means we're probably going to see more horizontal pressing in the gymnastics, horizontal pressing and horizontal pulling in the gymnastics work. And then conversely, on the opposite week, when we're pressing in a horizontal plane, that's when you're going to see more of the, whether it's a ring dip or strict pull up, more vertical movement of the pressing. So we tried to make sure that we are complementing using the gymnastics work to, 1, improve our gymnastics, but 2, to complement the high CNS work so that we can really kind of maximize its effectiveness. But again, also just like getting athletes understanding that I do want you to be able to do handstand push-ups. I do want you to do kipping pull-ups and eventually sling yourself over the rings. But the foundation for that is not heave and pray on top of the rings. I'm going to hang on to the pull-up bar, my tendons and ligaments while I do these kipping pull-ups, as opposed to developing the strength that's necessary to control your own body weight and then apply dynamic force via, the more traditional more classic CrossFit movements like the kipping and stuff like that.
But it's also a solution for both ends of the spectrum. I enjoy high skill movements, muscle ups, handstand push-ups, butterfly, whether it's chin over bar, chest to bar muscle up, high end capacity. The times when I notice that I can do 1, 2, or 3 more reps in a set, especially under fatigue, are not a fucking coincidence that I love strict pull-ups and push-ups, and I do a ton of them.
For sure.
And when I get myself onto a thoughtful program where I'm, doing both or bouncing back and forth week to week, it's those movements that move the needle for me.
Yep.
Any work that I do on my muscle ups or on my handstand push-ups, so much of that is about fine-tuning the efficiency, and you do get, small percentage points of increase from things like a muscle up EMOM or whatever, but the largest change that I've seen in my gymnastics is when I am not neglecting strict pull-ups and push-ups.
Anytime an athlete has come to me, like whether it's after a season or is trying to move the needle for themselves in either strength or gymnastics, it's always like, okay, you're about to do a fuckload of push-ups and strict pull-ups, whether it's horizontal or vertical. We're going to try to mix that up, but it's always strict pulling and pressing to develop that strength. And lo and behold, more often than not, that also moves the needle for the handstand push-ups. We talk about it. We talk about the snatch not necessarily being a lift that gets you strong, but one that allows you to express your strength with the coordination and the, the positional work that we do. And I think of it the same way with like the muscle ups and the butterfly pull-ups. It's like those are expressions of your ability to perform the more basic movements of, you have strict pulling capacity, you have strict pressing capacity, and now you can apply that to one of the more dynamic, sexy movements that everybody wants to get better at. We still want to practice those skills, but skill acquisition and strength development are two separate things that have to be treated, not necessarily separately, but we have to consider the fact that they're different, and the ways that we get better at them are also different. All right, Misfits, just a quick break in the show. If you haven't figured it out already, we are talking about Team Misfit affiliate programming and our baseline training phases that start April 17th. You can get yourself signed up on teammisfit.com or the SugarWOD marketplace. And what's nice about signing up through teammisfit.com is you get the full month of programming in advance. And what you get with that month is a weekly overview of each week. And then each subsequent training day includes warm-ups, suggested pacing instructions, target scores, scaling options for the workouts to make sure that everybody's getting kind of the workout that we're intending and visualizing when we write the program. And then you also get the competitor extra every single day for the athletes who want a little bit more. So you can sign up on teammisfit.com or the SugarWOD marketplace. You get a free 2-week trial through that SugarWOD marketplace, but that new baseline phase starts April 17th. We've got a whole bunch of the stuff that we're talking about today in the podcast and more coming starting in April. All right, back to the show.
Everything that we're talking about is CrossFit by definition, but there's something to, as the community moves forward and we continue to blur the lines between the sport and the affiliate by accident of what needs to take place with what we're doing here. There's something to having that day that reminds you of where you came from, why you fell in love with the training methodology, sort of for lifestyle. And that is just your truly classic kind of one and done CrossFit day. Can you take me through the ideal day, like start to finish, of coaching a CrossFit class? Like what you would want to happen, warm up, maybe teaching any of the movements, cool down, any of that.
Yeah, I mean, one of these days per week, we have our CrossFit day and what we've kind of dubbed intensity day. And for the reasons that you just alluded to, instead of having to worry about, fitting, quote unquote, fitting multiple things in one class, we can focus on one single training piece that is intended to be, that we have written and is intended to be execute with that mindset of like, this is the only thing I can do today, or that I'm going to do today to move the needle for my fitness. I need to light my hair on fire and get after it. And as the coaches, we need to be communicating that to athletes, that that's kind of the expectation. That's what we want out of this day. But setting athletes up to do that starts with like, as long, I like to try to get as long of a warm up as I can reasonably do while still allocating time to teach at least one of the movements, execute, and then hopefully cool down as well. So we like to use a lot of times the same Maffetone style warm-up that we would recommend for any of our competitive athletes, and we'll usually mix things up a little bit. Again, it's easier to convince a competitive CrossFitter to sit on a bike for 5 minutes at this heart rate, 5 minutes at that.
You can
5
trick
minutes
an
at
affiliate.
We can instead just trick an affiliate athlete into doing that. But
you get to rotate and do a banded walk.
You get to lunge across the gym to your next machine and high five somebody on the way, but it's still the same idea. So we get people as warm as we can reasonably fit into class. And I like to do I have a couple internal check boxes, like, are athletes starting to take layers off mid warm up? Can I actually literally see sweat or like the forehead start to glisten? Am I seeing people take a quick swig of water during warm up movements? And I can tell that it's working. Any additional kind of mobility. So if there's a movement that requires, a lot of range of motion, say there's an overhead squat or a thruster, something like that, we're obviously doing some sort of movement prep to open up hips, shoulders, those sorts of things. And then we're diving into hopefully every movement within reason, but certainly the kind of the crux of the workout movement. If there is one, if it's, let's say there's a muscle up or a wall walk, then we're going to try to break that down into such a way where we can, one, continue to warm it up for athletes, but two, give them at least one thing to think about. And I tell coaches that, like, you don't necessarily need, and partially because you might not have time to teach every single movement, or even in the odd instance that you don't teach any movement, maybe it's just a very straightforward workout, you can still provide athletes with either a movement efficiency tip, a kind of quote unquote pro tip to get through the workout easier, whatever it is. We're providing that to our athletes. And then obviously, kind of setting the environment, setting the tone in such a way that's like, hey, I want you guys to go at the, fastest appropriate pace for this workout. If it's 20-minute AMRAP, that doesn't mean setting yourself on fire in the first minute. We're thinking about this whole workout. It's the only thing you've got to do today. We're going to get after it as hard as we can. And then ideally, we've got at least a couple minutes at the end to encourage somebody to sit on a machine, go for a walk outside to start that cool down. And better yet, some stretching and foam rolling class. I wish I could say that I managed to get all of those things in, but our athletes have done a pretty good job, and our coaches, in kind of setting the culture of like, hey, just because this cool down didn't occur within the 60 minutes of your class, like, if you want to train tomorrow, you need to sit on a machine or go for that 5-minute walk and then do one mobilization or attack one body part foam rolling per day or something like that to facilitate recovery. But we're looking for coaches to be leading the entire class, leading kind of every aspect of that class, and then helping scale athletes in such a way that gets them that high intensity workout that so many of us kind of got bit by when they first started CrossFit. Like, holy shit, like, that workout was 8 minutes long, and I feel like I just got run over by a Mack truck. Like, that's the kind of
and it's fun too.
And it's fun.
Yeah.
You get to do that
in a
with
very
your
odd
friends.
way.
Yes.
Yeah. If you listen to this podcast regularly, I'm about to go on a rant about warming up and cooling down. But the selling this to your members again, and to the community leaders and to your other coaches, has some pretty ridiculous benefits for something that is literally not hard at all. There couldn't be anything more easy than warming up and cooling down when it comes to effort. So let's say that you convince and you create the culture, more monkey see, monkey do than like, do this.
Yep.
You get 15 athletes show up to the gym. Hopefully your classes don't overlap. But this is still possible with, walking, jogging, that sort of thing. Doing stuff off to the side. 15-minute warm up where they go from resting heart rate up near that zone 2 feeling. 15-minute cool down where they go from wherever you just put them, whatever grave you just put them into, to by the end of 15 minutes, I feel pretty good again.
Yep.
That's 30 minutes a day, where if an athlete comes to the gym 5 times a week, that's 2.5 hours of something in the neighborhood of zone 2 cardio. Potentially the number one longevity hack that there is, in that neighborhood of time every week for an athlete. So they're living longer. Coach, I hate the rower. I hate the assault bike. I hate the skier. I hate the C2 bike. Guess what? Develop slow musculature, nice and easy, barely any effort at all, and you will desensitize yourself and develop some physiology to back that up.
Yeah.
You can add 2.5 hours of free exercise to people who clearly are asking for that anyways by developing this culture at your gym.
It's funny how many athletes can you think of that are just like, I don't want to, like, oh, that warm up crushed me. Like, I'm not gonna be able to do the workout, or like, what the heck? Like, how am I supposed to like go hard in the workout if like you warmed me up properly? And it's like, I'm in my head, like, there are a lot of things I'm saying at that point to that athlete, but at the end of the day, it's like, one, like for a lot of people, this 1 hour might be all that they do as far as movement, like physical movement.
Yeah.
The rest of the time we're sitting in a chair, sitting in an office, in a car, whatever it is. It is, like you said, between an hour and, let's say, like on the low end, and 2.5 hours of free continuous movement that you're getting out of your athletes.
Sit next to your pal, yuck it up the whole time.
And like you said, it's not like we've fortunately developed a good enough culture where it's pretty uncommon to come in 10 minutes before a class and not see at least a handful, depends on how big the class is, but a handful of athletes already spinning on a C2 bike or a salt bike. Not hard, just kind of sitting next to each other, mucking it up, or on their own, just warming up, and they are getting that additional movement. And for the people who are concerned about, if you've got athletes who are concerned about the warm-up impacting their workout, those are the people who more than anybody need to be moving as much as possible during those 60 minutes. Like nobody who's concerned about their workout performance being degraded by their warm-up needs to be moving more than that person.
Yeah. From a coaching perspective, you've got red flags on both sides, depending on, am I achieving this? Am I developing this culture? Am I doing a good job of warming up and cooling down my athletes? Athletes that do not slowly send blood flow out to all their extremities will crash and burn in workouts when it looks like they didn't really go that hard.
Crash and burn. That's where like people get injuries and tweaks. It's just like everybody. It's the stuff that everybody knows. And when you like look back and you're like, yeah, I don't know what happened. I didn't warm up very well, and I felt like ass after round 2, and now I got some weird like tight spots in my hips. And again, I didn't really warm up, but I just don't know what happened. And it's like hold on a second. Let's gonna say that again, but a little bit slower. And it's like, especially if you have somebody who's coming in either 5-6 days a week. You get somebody who's bitten by the CrossFit Kool-Aid bug. It's like we need to be setting those people up for success over the course of a long period of time, not just a 6-week chunk before someone gets bored and injured.
Yeah. Cool down red flag. Everyone's sore all the time. That one's pretty easy. I'm not going to lie. I did not start doing this personally, like do as I say, not as I do, until, I don't know, it's maybe been 3 years now, 2 or 3 years. And it's just like, when you start cooling down and again, like bang for your buck, like you're not doing anything. You're just, you're continuing to move for a little while afterwards. And it started with me with just a walk. Like there was no heart rate monitor. There was no nothing. It was just like, I need a 10 to 15 minute walk. Literally went from like a 6 soreness daily to like a 2.
Yeah.
And it's like, how can I as a coach preach this and ask for it and not do it myself? So it works. It works really well. And again, if you are, in a place like we are, it is that time of year where you can tell your members, if you guys have time, go do a few laps. Like get that community vibe, talk about the workout, talk about what the hell you want, get out there and walk for 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, we saw, it's funny, Sherb sent me a repost from CrossFit. An affiliate had posted like, we've started doing a daily cool down walk after class, and it's been so great for the affiliates. And Sherb kind of sent it to me like in a somewhat sarcastic tone of like, bitch, we've been doing this for 5 years. Like that's standard operating procedure, is especially when the doors are open. Like, hey, go outside, go for a cool down walk. I'll see you in probably 15 minutes after class when you're done walking with friends. But we talk, from the competitor side, we talk a lot about optimal versus like what you can feasibly do. And it might not be ideal, optimally it is that, it's 15 minutes of a structured cool down with a heart rate monitor on a bike. But when we're talking about actual application in real life at the affiliate level, like the going for a cool down walk, it's impossible to compare, benefits of like camaraderie of walking with friends versus like benefit of cooling down slowly on a bike, but by yourself. And ultimately it doesn't matter, but sending people outside for that cool down walk post workout is one easy way to get that cool down, whether it's a jog or just a walk buy-in as far as like going to do that. But you're also setting up your athletes, like you said, to, hey, talk about the workout. Better yet, if you're a coach and you go out and walk with your athletes and just kind of muck it up, whether it's general socialization or you're talking about the workout. But there's so many other, small little bits that you get from encouraging that sort of culture where it's like, come in, warm up really well. Hey, after the workout, we always go for a 300-meter cool down walk, and that serves as a good time to get some steps in, some non-exercise movement. We get some sunlight, so we get some vitamin D, you get the social aspect. Like, how many other factors can we stack on top with something as simple as going for a cool down walk or warming up for 10 minutes before class?
Time for the $1 million question.
Ooh, all right.
The spectrum goes from one workout a day, that's what you're supposed to do, that's what CrossFit was, to classes 16 hours long. We've got banded deadlifts at a Z9, pause at the middle, the top, pause before you get to the gym, after the gym, and sort of everywhere in between. And this isn't only a programming, honestly, it's not really a programming question as much as it is my members want X, Y, and Z, or they're used to it, or I don't know how to get my coaches to sell this. $1 million question is, when else do we lift? How often do we lift? When is it appropriate? What are the different ways we can bring weightlifting into a CrossFit class? Mm-hmm. Like, what does the rest of the lifting look like? Because that is a question the gym owner is going to have, the coaches are going to have, the members are going to have all the way down the line.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's that part of the, when we're building or when you're programming anything, like, you can go as far in one direction as you want, right? No structure isn't necessarily beneficial. Like, even, just because CrossFit is constantly varied doesn't mean there's no structure, right? I think hopefully everybody knows that at this point, that just because, you're doing something different pretty much every
actually
day.
It's random, and those aren't pull-ups.
Yes.
Okay.
Fair enough. Or similarly, going in the opposite direction, where every Monday we squat, every Tuesday we snatch, every Wednesday we deadlift, whatever it is, those have massive drawbacks as well. Like, too much structure isn't helpful. So, we have basically a day that's dedicated to internally. When I'm looking at my sheets, trying to figure out like how to template this out correctly, it's like, what are we missing? What haven't I done? What's got a 0 on the movement tracker? Where's when's the last time we did a weighted pull-up instead of a bunch of strict pull-ups? When's the last time we sumo deadlifted versus conventional deadlifted, that sort of thing, high rep versus super heavy? And there's at least one day per week where we're saying like, hey, what am I missing? I've created this gigantic template with a lot of structure and pieces move here, and there, but inevitably something is going to get missed. And that's through experience of doing things where it's like, hey, we're gonna deadlift once a week for the
111 affiliate phases.
Yeah, of 111 affiliate phases. And turns out that sometimes after we finish a high CNS lift, we don't use that lift for a bunch of time because we're just gonna focus on other things. And that's where kind of the too much structure becomes constraining in its own weird way. So we have basically a GPP day where some days, maybe you'll get a lift and a conditioning piece. Some days it's only conditioning. I don't think super often it's only lifting, but those are the days when we do get the lifting that, it's not going to be a squat or a deadlift more than likely, or a pressing variant, but that's when we go, it's an Olympic lift. Maybe it's a really heavy lunge. Maybe it's like working with kettlebells and like some weird nuanced movements, but it's effectively what we call a GPP day, which is a tiny bit of a misnomer because the whole program is intended to be a GPP program. Yeah. But when
from
you
a
are,
lifting standpoint,
and from a very, very broad, macro full, like 1 year, it's like, this is a GPP program. When we look at this 16-week block where it's like, wow, that's a lot of running and deadlifting and pressing. It's like, that is true, but it's also part of the larger structure. But within that phase, we have to make sure that we are addressing variance. We are making sure that athletes are getting exposure to things that they aren't, every single week. And that's basically how we kind of build that day into the program.
All right. one of the things that I do on the competitor side, and you actually just alluded to in one instance, and it'll be even more apparent here, is this idea of having the outline and structure of a program done and seeing where you've put in these slight biases, trying not to overcorrect. Then before we really dig into the finer points, the micro programming, is this question of what's missing, what is not there. The ultimate expression of that within Team Misfit is the competitor extra. Sure. And it's really cool because so many athletes, again, want to be part of the community. And, you know, we know better than anybody because we are communicating with them in Discord on the competitor side, you know, nonstop, of these people who are alone on an island doing, you know, CrossFit workouts during open gym. You know, they've got to get a key to the gym and all that sort of stuff. There are athletes who will not thrive in that scenario that should be, you know, put back into the general population, but still want to compete, still like to have that extra thing. They have an appetite for more volume, or they love the local comp, or they're, you know, actually serious about how they do in the open in quarterfinals. And that's where we go in and we say we have this really well-rounded program at the affiliate level, but it's for general health. We want people to be strong. We want people to be skilled. We want people to be conditioned. As we think more towards the sport, this competitor extra becomes what needs to be in there that isn't, that will advance you in the sport.
Yeah, I think we talked about it on a previous podcast, but I think of, you know, if you were the ideal customer, no, if you were the ideal individual, you would have, you know, the Team Misfit affiliate programming for your gym. You would have your affiliate athletes who fit into the category that you just elaborated on, the, hey, I care about my performance. I want to start taking steps toward this whole competition thing. Then that's where it's like, okay, I do the affiliate class stuff plus the competitor extra, you know, scaled appropriately or when it's appropriate. And then, and only then, once I'm really hammering those 2 or 3 training pieces from the same program, then I can make the jump to the hatchet program, like the Misfit Athletics individual stuff. And I think that a lot of athletes, especially if you are somebody who is alone kind of on the island, it's like the thought process is, okay, I'm pretty good at my affiliate class. Maybe I win a good portion of the workouts, some I don't, but I really want to get better. Therefore, I'm going to jump to a completely different program, the Hatchet or the MFT program, and I'm going to skip multiple steps kind of along the way. And I think the competitor extra is a really good kind of intermediate step for the athletes who are like, maybe you do only have the 1 to 2 hours. You have, sometimes it's only the 1 hour affiliate class, and then, or maybe an additional 30 minutes where you can do the competitor extra. But that is where you can start to build in a little bit of additional volume. You can get the, you know, for the most part, we have, you know, if there's a lifting piece in class, if there's a lifting and a Metcon in class, you're probably going to see a skill-based thing for the competitor extra. If you're only seeing on the lift only days, you're almost certainly going to see a cardio element for the competitor extra. And you can, you know, maybe there's a day where it's only gymnastics and a short Metcon, then you're going to get your extra competitor, your lift, some sort of lift to address something that we're missing. But I think the competitor extra is a really good way for your affiliate level athletes to, you know, you can either, as a coach, you either dangle the competitor extra out there as like, hey, let's really go hard on like the basics that are in this affiliate class, which by the way, like the affiliate class workouts, anytime Caroline and Austin, two, you know, resident games athletes jump into class, like they're not scaling those workouts up. They're just ruined for like the next couple of days because of how hard they can go. So it's not even like these athletes need a scaled up version of what's in class. That's definitely not the case. It's let's earn, you know, maybe you earn that competitor extra piece by going really hard. You demonstrated that you could, you know, execute this workout as it was intended to be done, good movement quality, all that sort of stuff. You've earned the right to haze yourself with some rowing intervals or do some additional lifting or skill work, whatever it is. But I think the competitor extra just bridges the gap of kind of the broader question of what's missing for an athlete looking to do a little bit more. We can give them that, and after doing it for long enough, then the athlete maybe has the option or opportunity to go to a more nuanced program like Hatchet, where it's like, this is a very specific thing for an aspiring competitive athlete to get to. But a lot of times affiliate level athletes make that really big jump when it's like, well, we've still got some stuff to work on kind of at the CrossFit coach basics level or CrossFit athlete before we even jump into thinking about adding more volume. Let's do this kind of like in the correct order, one step at a time, earn your volume before you decide to make a move to a more specific, like, competitive program.
This is probably the area of the affiliate program that I interact with the most, because there are multiple athletes at the affiliate that I quasi remote coach, where I'm moving pieces around and, sort of looking at the totality of their program and making sure things aren't missing. And I just want to make sure that any, affiliate owners and coaches understand how we view this. So there's sort of multiple ways to deliver this to your athletes. The cool thing is, if they log into wherever the workouts are posted for your gym, they can see them, right? So if I'm coming to, 6 a.m. class, 9 a.m. class, 5:30 p.m. class, whatever, I see throughout the week these pieces sort of accumulate. And an athlete can, sort of be the type who says, we would want it to go from, Thursdays or almost always have a MAF in there as the competitor extra. Yep. That's the first box to check.
Yeah, for sure.
I need to, we alluded to it already, that long, slow stuff. It's not the prettiest thing to put into a CrossFit class, but it's the thing that will move the needle the most for someone trying to make that jump. And then they go in and, a month or two later, once they've gotten into the groove, they test out a day where they had a lift, or they test out a day where they add in a conditioning piece or a skill piece, and they start to just feel out what it's like to add volume, whether it's appropriate, whether it's ruining the rest of their week. From there, we do a class that is 90 minutes long in the middle of the day, 3 p.m., basically every day. And that's where we coach the competitor extra.
Right.
I don't think that that's entirely necessary, but it is a pretty awesome luxury and a way to build that culture if that's something that you're interested in. I would just be really careful with not making that exclusive. It felt that way at first at our gym. And now it's like, if 3 p.m.'s convenient, I'm going to be there. Yeah. And might not do the competitor extra. Who cares?
Yeah. I think that could be a good way, because we've had separate entire podcasts on the idea of, a culture of competitive athletes. And maybe your gym is one where it's like, well, I've got 5 to 10 athletes who are each doing their own program kind of off to the side, and it creates some sort of a little bit of division. It's like, are those people even members of the community, or are they just, paying for access to the gym sort of thing? I think the 90-minute class affords you the opportunity to say, like, hey, if you are one of these people who wants to like level up, assuming that you are, already meeting the requisite, hopefully, 4 to 6 times a week, and you're, hammering the affiliate class workouts, and you want to be competitive, then maybe there is that 90-minute opportunity where you get coached in that third piece. And the coach, more often than not, our coaches will switch up kind of the order. If we've got 3 training pieces, it's pretty unlikely that they're going to do 2 conditioning pieces back to back and then the lift, right? So the coach is now thinking about what is the most effective way for this 90-minute class to be run such that athletes extract the most fitness out of that 1 hour. So you've got a combination of that happening, and you've also just got the opportunity for those athletes to, instead of being on multiple separate programs, to come together to one, be like, yeah, I could do this 4 days. I could do this 4 days a week of having this squad coming together to train. And like you said, we have, I would say, more than half of the athletes who go to that class at our gym go there for the convenience of the time.
Yeah.
It's not like, I think there's probably a misconception that just because we have the kind of home of Misfit Athletics that we just have these fucking cyborgs out running around doing fitness 24/7, which is mostly untrue, save the couple, elite athletes that we have at the gym. For the most part, everybody else is, sometimes they'll come to Hatchet because they like the extra training piece. We call it Hatchet. That's the name of the class. They come for that extra training piece, but far more frequently, it's just like, 3 p.m. works. And a lot of people will be like, hey, I'm doing the first hour as if it were affiliate class because an hour is good enough for me. And they head out before we do the additional training piece, whatever that happens to be. And the nice part is that all the, let's say that the coach does mix up the order of operations, so to speak. The program isn't going to conflict with something. It's not like they're going to back squat in the competitor extra on Tuesday and then go into regular class tomorrow and back squat again.
That's the danger of the multiple programs.
Sure, exactly.
And it happens at higher levels than you would think. Athletes get really, sort of, trying to think of distracted, basically seeing like, oh, I got to get better at this. I got to get better at this. And I got to get better at this. And they're either sacrificing something else or the cohesion of their program, which typically ends up running somebody into the ground.
Yeah. And then you actually create more gaps than you thought you were filling, right? If you're an athlete who's like, well, I haven't done X, Y, or Z in a while, I better, I saw something on Instagram or I saw a training piece that has X, Y, and Z, so I'm going to do that. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, turns out 2 days from now you were going to do that in your affiliate class. That becomes a whole thing where it's like, let's stick with the one program that is hopefully well enough thought out that you're not going to have these gaps, which I think is the case with the affiliate program, where you're not going to, like, I do that all the time. I'll be like, man, I haven't done chest to bar pull-ups in a while. I'm going to do some today. And then without fail, the next day will be like Misfit sets, chest to bar pull-ups. And I'm the one who wrote the I'm like, fuck, God damn it. Like, here's another 50 chest to bar pull-ups that I have to do. But it's, that can solve a lot of problems for athletes as far as making sure that they're getting the things that they need over the course, again, of a long period of time. If athletes are, goldfish memory that it's like, I haven't done chest to bar pull-ups in ages. And it's been like a week and a half and you've done a whole bunch of other pulling. Let's not put the cart before the horse. That's the benefit of having a program that's like put together, a big picture down to small for the course of the entire year.
We've sort of been weaving it in throughout the entire episode, but this idea of culture, make sure that you are sort of continuing all the way down the line to hold that near and dear. It's going to make your gym more fun. It's going to make your gym, more profitable. Make sure that if you are having this class again, that you have that culture and community focus. If you don't have this 90-minute class, you sort of try to pool athletes together. Hey, I know that this crew takes the 9 a.m. and this crew takes the 5 p.m. and they do the competitor extra together in the 30 minutes, during the class gap or something like that. So really try to foster that sort of stuff. And we actually just did an entire podcast on volume. So if you're listening to this podcast thinking about jumping on board with Team Misfit, or you're listening to it because you normally listen to, the Team Misfit Phase podcast, I would recommend going backwards. But one of the Cliff's notes there is the leveling is almost always off by 1 at the affiliate level is what I find. So I'll take it all the way to the top. If you have an athlete in your gym that can truly, you can see the writing on the wall, can smell semifinals. You don't know whether they're going to want to put the extra time and effort in. They don't know that yet. That is and I'm talking about actual semifinals qualification. That is the only athlete in your gym that needs to reach out to, myself and say, hey, should I switch over to Hatchet? Everybody else is either at the competitor extra, for all 5 days a week, 4 days a week, 3 days a week, 2 days a week, 1 day a week, 0. That's the spectrum that we're at. And we are talking about your local fire breather, because typically the local fire breather has some gaping hole, or they just don't have the time to do extra, whatever. Like you, for instance,
Yep.
You, at this point, probably not qualifying for semifinals,
Come on.
not trying to qualify for semifinals.
Yeah.
There is absolutely positively no reason for you to, you know, when you get the bug and you're really training hard 5 days a week, to do anything other than that.
Yeah.
And if you guys, you know, you can check his scores on the leaderboard, sure, it would fall into that category in most instances. That caliber of athlete still does not need hatchet.
5 days, there's 6 days a week of the, like, in the manner, if I were saying, like, for the competitor at your gym who fits into the sub semifinals category, like, have them do an entire training phase of, you know, 3 days on. Thursday is the programmed rest day. That's always the case for the program when it comes to the competitor extra. It will always be that Maffetone session on Thursday, because I think the competitive athletes need, if you are living kind of the competitor lifestyle or training style, so to speak, you need that 1 day of recovery and one recovery to aerobic base building, like we talked about earlier in the podcast, but to, like, 6 days a week of 2 to 3 training pieces per day, like, do that for an entire phase and tell me it was like, yeah, that wasn't enough. I think I need more, despite being, you know, in that category that you said of athlete. And I personally, and I would say it's more a function of just personal motivation and time, but, like, I'll do a couple days of the hatchet or the all 3 training pieces that are programmed, and I'm like, holy fuck, like, I feel like I got hit by a bus. And maybe there is a level of deconditioning, and it's like, well, I need to do that more,
or is it you're giving them the attention that they deserve and not just like, can I stack pieces? Sure,
exactly. Yeah, and that's rarely the case for me. I don't often spend spare time training, but it's like that, those 2 to 3 training pieces a day for, you know, a couple training phases. Like, if you have those athletes, point them in that direction long before we start talking about the individual programming. Because I agree, like you said, we had quarterfinal athletes who are inside the top 200 in the region, in, like, the North America East, that all they do is they have a broad enough base of, you know, athleticism and long enough time training age in the sport to have a certain baseline level. But to be at that level, only doing like 1 hour of fitness per day, like Lizzie's the person who comes to mind, who will do basically just affiliate class, like a 1 hour affiliate class, 5 to 6 days a week, 4 to 6 days a week, and is inside the, you know, not that far from semifinals caliber. And if she wanted to and had the, like, personal motivation to, I think could be a semifinals athlete. But as
so much of her secret too is consistency. Like, when do we see the, like, you know, we do roll call in the coaches meeting, that name's not coming up. She shows up and she works.
Never had to wonder where Lizzie is, you know, as far as she hasn't been to the gym in a week or two. So absolutely, the consistency thing, and then just a little bit at a time. And that can be also going from, like you kind of alluded to, maybe you currently do 4 to 6 days a week of affiliate class. Like, next week, it's 4 to 6 days of affiliate class plus 1 single additional training piece. And you do that for a couple weeks. And then if things go well, it's 2 additional training pieces. We're just trying to keep in mind that the goal is for athletes to be able to sustain this for a very, very long period of time, not just a training block where you go really hard for 8 weeks and then feel like you got hit by a truck for 3 weeks before you go back to training.
Team Misfit affiliate programming baseline phase, Monday, April 17th, teammisfit.com or the SugarWOD marketplace. Final thoughts, Coach Hunter.
Man, I'm very excited to see. I would be lying if I said I wasn't a little bit nervous about the running stuff, just because of the alluding to the various opinions that people have about running, and I always try to encourage athletes to get outside and pound the pavement versus trying to, like, today I'm just gonna sit on a machine. It's like there's nothing quite like propelling yourself through space, whether you love running or hate running. But I'm excited for that portion of the phase. And I think just final thoughts are trying to as the coach, it's our responsibility to communicate, to try to bring the information that you and I are communicating in a broader sense through the podcast through all the way down to your affiliate athletes. Because we also get questions about like, hey, do you have a macro, graphic or something of like the entire year? And no, the answer is no, I don't have that. I'm sorry. It is planned for the entire year, but it's also a little bit of, Colonel's secret herbs and spices going on. So, but the point is we're trying to communicate to athletes why the things that they're doing are important for both their immediate fitness, while also making sure it's like, hey, the goal is for you to be doing CrossFit for the next like 4 decades. And that's what I think is in my opinion, the biggest difference and the reason that CrossFit is so much more effective than any other training program ever devised is because the constantly varied nature of the program, and when you combine all the other charters of mechanics, consistency, intensity, kind of all the CrossFit terms and slogans put together, indicates that like we want athletes doing this, that low trajectory to a distant horizon kind of mentality of like, I'm going to move the needle a very, very small amount, but I'm going to do it consistently, and I'm going to do it for a really, really long time in order to see that progress. And I think it comes down to coaches being able to communicate like, this is what this program is, this is why it's so effective, and this is how we're going to move the needle for this small chunk of time in the context of a much longer duration of your training life.
Culture is everything, and culture is top down. So if you are unsatisfied with the vibe in your gym as of recent, or there's this member of your coaching staff that isn't up to snuff, or there's a group of people in the gym that you're having an issue with, really get back to baseline. It starts with us. In this context, we are sort of the tip of the spear, and we are, passionate about this and trying to sell the concept to you as affiliate owners and coaches. You do the same for the rest of your team. You make sure that your team is doing that same thing for the members, and it's going to slowly trickle all the way down to the point where you can make some real changes. But I just want to make sure that if you're an affiliate owner or a coach, or so the head coach or the manager in charge, that you have the ability to make some real big change in the culture of your gym just based on the way that you act and how excited you are. And one of the ways that we hope to help you with that is to give you all this information that we just did for the last hour and a half for you to then get excited about and sell downstream. TeamMisfit.com, SugarWOD Marketplace. We are getting started on Monday, April 17th. Obviously, as an affiliate, when this drops, you're going to be a week out. I recommend getting signed up, sort of seeing that month in advance, like really digging into what it's like. Yep. You don't want to sign up on the 16th and figure out how to sell it to your coaches and your members and all that stuff. That due diligence on that side is super important.
Yeah, for sure. And if you're listening now, like the first 2 weeks of the phase in April is already available. Like that's part of the programming for April that you already got. And if you're not, like, still have time, take a look. You'll be a week out. It's not the worst thing in the world. If you start a little bit late or a week late, you can hopefully take a look at where the tests are, the test and retest pieces. And either, athletes can either use the information that they have to just pick up right where we're at in kind of on the calendar day, or, you push it to the right 1 week. It's not the end of the world, but for sure, it's already, those first 2 weeks are already out there for anybody who subscribes between now and when that phase starts.
One of the main motivations for agreeing to develop the products for Proper Fuel is thousands of athletes, in person members, asking me, what should I take?
Yep.
What should I be taking? And I would go look, and I would not find the thing that matched up with the science. So the big example and the number one, basically the reason we got started is our Recover product. Post-workout, you are giving the athletes protein, carbs, digestive enzymes, creatine, extra leucine, so that they're actually recovering to go with all the new warm up and cool down that you're providing them. And if you are a Team Misfit affiliate, you get wholesale prices that are better than other gyms that are not. So, products that I like really stand behind from an efficacy standpoint. And then obviously there's a culture of taking them sort of around here, obviously, sort of proper HQ, and the feedback on all of them has been really fantastic. So if you are interested in wholesale for proper, we got some pretty good margins on that stuff. Email matt@properfuel.co. For anybody listening to this that is normally listening to sort of other topics, thanks for making it all the way through. Hopefully we made it interesting for you. Discord for affiliates.
Yep.
Jump into there. Let us know what you thought. What is the sign up for that?
To get into the Discord is not public like it is for Misfit Athletics.
Yep.
So we try to keep it to subscribers only. But if you subscribe on teammisfit.com, once you click the webpage, the download my program page, there are instructions right at the top with
Beautiful.
the link to get into Discord. And we also email it to you on sign up. So jump in there. We've lots of affiliates like to jump in. We've had a few that like to say, hey, I want to make Saturdays a partner workout. Can you help me out? Usually myself or Kyle or Sherb will jump in and retool the workout so that it can accommodate, your a 4-person team or 3-person team, whatever it is. And then that's where we kind of post, hey, this is what's coming up in the phase, and any other questions that you guys may have. You get that kind of direct line to the people who write the program.
Affiliates, jump into Discord. Let us know how we did on this episode. If you are on the fence about signing up for this program, I am @MisfitCoach on Instagram. Slide into those DMs, ask away. See you next week.